Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be taking a look at all 84 brawlers in the game right now, ranking them from very worst all the way up to the very best, putting them in a tier list. As always, this video takes a ton of time, multiple days, so I really appreciate if you guys like the video and of course subscribe if you're new. Without further ado, let's jump into it then. So the first brawler, the worst brawler in the game, is definitely going to be Doug. He can actually be useful on really grassy maps, but good players can just keep the distance really easily against Doug, and he just doesn't really provide enough support value. So before we get into the video, I just need to tell you guys just how amazing the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6 really is. The Z Fold 6 is the perfect phone whether you're a casual gamer or if you're a hardcore gamer like myself. The feature that is most useful for me is definitely the multi-window viewing, because if you guys play a lot of ranked, this is super useful, as during the draft stage, knowing what to ban can be super stressful. And whilst I'm playing ranked, this literally feels like I'm cheating, because I'll have my YouTube video of the ranked cheat sheet guide at the top, so I can quickly scroll through the video, see what map it is, what bans, etc. I can easily pick what bans are best, and I can pick what brawlers are best as well. And then whilst I get into the game, I can just quickly remove the YouTube video, go to full screen mode, and just destroy everyone. For other competitors like the iPhone 16 Pro, your view is limited window to window, whilst here, again, split screen, I can easily close this down, get into the full screen, and just own everyone. And even if you didn't want to split screen, the screen size boasts a massive 7.6-inch screen for immersive gaming. It is literally like having a phone and a tablet all in one, so whether you use it for gaming, watching movies, or sketching, it really is a do-it-all device. Another feature I also love is the live translator with Galaxy AI, especially as I do a lot of traveling, and it's super useful, and it's only available on Galaxy devices. So what are you waiting for? Make sure to check out the Z Fold 6 using the link in the description below, as this device is a cut above all competition. Next up in the F tier, we have our boy Hank. Unfortunately, he's just dropped down. There's a lot of big, heavy damage dealers in the meta right now, and he just can't deal with it. He can't even get close enough to deal any damage. He's just trash. So in the F tier, we have Miko. So he's dropping down to the F tier, mainly because he doesn't have the DPS to keep up with anything right now. With all these damage dealers, there's just not really much use case for him. I think the only time he's really great is if like Mortis and other assassins are banned and he's a late pick against throwers. That's the only use case. Other than that, he's just trash. So in the F tier, we have Bonnie. Might be a little bit surprised to you guys. I just think Bonnie is absolutely trash, mainly because we have this new brawler called Mo, who is literally just a better version of Bonnie. It's the fact that Bonnie has to jump in and then she's just vulnerable for like 20 seconds, which is insane, whilst Mo can just go straight back into his other form. So for that reason, I think she's been incredibly power crept, and she's absolutely near the bottom of the meta. Lastly, in the F tier, we have Ash. So you know that Ash is bad in the meta when NA isn't even using Ash in pro tournaments. He's just not really got much of a use case right now. Everyone just destroys him. He's just trash. Now we're going to be moving on to the D tier. So these brawlers might have a few use cases, but most of the time they're not really that great. So starting off with Bo. Bo really has fallen down. He was like the best brawler in the game a year ago when he had just an insane damage buff. But again, there's just so many brawlers that are much better with hypercharges, etc. He just gets ran down too easy. So in the D tier, we have Charlie. So she's definitely fallen off in the meta. She used to be always ultra consistent, and now there's just so many brawlers that have just got a lot better with hypercharges, etc. And considering she's a tank counter primarily, she doesn't really have that much about her anymore. It takes her a long time to get through to her super, whereas you have brawlers like Chester, Gale, etc. that are just able just to rip through brawlers quickly. Charlie just still gets run over. Next with the D tier, we have Sam. So good Sam players can definitely make him work and make him look more like a B tier brawler, but he's only good as a late pick in ranked, and he's just not good in ladder. Too many damage dealers. He can't even get close. So with the D tier, we have a Janet. So I'm starting to appreciate her a little bit more, but only as a late pick in ranked. She's good against other damage dealers that are in the meta because she counters them, but then there's just too many assassins at the top of the meta. She doesn't have the DPS to keep up, so she has to still remain in D tier. Next to the D tier, we have Bull. So again, he's just so easy to predict with his super. He's only really good in heists on Hot Potato. That's pretty much it. Other tanks, other assassins are just better, so there's no point using Bull. So with a D tier, we have Poco. So I had high hopes for Poco, especially because his hypercharge cycles so quickly, but his hypercharge is absolutely terrible. Most of the time, you're not actually going to get value out of it, and even so, the shield just runs out so fast. He doesn't have the damage to keep up right now. I don't even see him in the hot zone meta, so he's just awful at the moment. Next up in the D tier, we have Fang. So another brawler. People might think that's stronger, depending on your trophy range. Lower trophy range is going to be really good, easy to get team wipes with, but in competitive play, Fang hasn't been seen for months. He's not even good into snipers right now. There's just 0 point using Fang. Takes forever to get his hypercharge. He's absolutely in the D tier. So with the D tier, we have El Primo. So again, he's starting to drop down a little bit. The only use case for him in previous metas was to counter brawlers like Frank, etc. But I still think he doesn't do the best of jobs into that. His hypercharge is pretty lackluster. There's not really much use case for him. So with the D tier, we have Jackie. So again, another brawler that's really good against casuals and just really good at running it down in Brawl with the hypercharge. But pro players will be able to just easily pinch out Jackie. She has no range and there's not really many reasons to use her. Next up with the D tier, we have Lou. So Lou used to always be the king of Hot Zone. I think again, the meta has definitely shifted where he can't get as much value with his supers anymore. It just takes him too long. His hypercharge is still pretty effective. But again, there's just better brawlers in the meta right now. Next with the D tier, we have Mr. P. So another brawler that just doesn't have the DPS to keep up. Reminds me very much like Janet in that sense. He's only really good into snipers, and still then his damage is just so lackluster. Any good player can just overwhelm a Mr. P so easily. Next with the D tier, we have Pam. So I've definitely noticed her drop off a lot. People are still like saying she's CB tier brawler, and I don't know why, because she's not even really being used in pro play right now. She used to be really good in Hot Zone, for example, but I still think the Hot Zone meta just destroys her, especially because there's so many damage dealers right now that can just rip through Pam. Her damage isn't consistent enough to keep up, so yeah, she's not even good anymore. So with the D tier, we have Spike. So this one might be surprising to some people, but at the same time, you know Spike's bad when my randoms in ranked don't even pick Spike anymore. There used to be a phase, even in Power League, where people just insta-lock Spike no matter what. They don't even play Spike, so it goes to show he's not even that great for the casual player base. He's definitely not good enough competitive play base. He doesn't have the damage to keep up. He's absolutely at the highest D tier. Some people are even saying he's F tier. Next up in the D tier, we have Edgar. So another brawler that's dropped down a tier, mainly because I just never find myself wanting to go Edgar too much. Again, he is a good counter to the likes of throwers, which are pretty prevalent in the meta, but most of the time, you'd rather go a Daryl, Kenji, Mortis, even Mo good into throwers. There's so many other counters to throwers. Edgar's starting to drop down more. So in the D tier, we have Chuck. So this one's definitely more so my opinion. The more I play ranked, the more I realize just how easy it is to counter Chuck in Heist. You can easily just run it down against him. On ladder, he's still a pretty easy brawler to push in Heist because he's just brainless. But I still think as time goes on, people are just learning how to counter him more until he gets maybe a hypercharge. I think absolutely at most he's C tier. So next up in the D tier, we have Maisie. So I know straight away I'm going to get flamed. Well, you're just a bad Maisie, skill issue. You can't hit your shots. Well, the problem is even the pros aren't using Maisie. So the best players in the game, if they can't hit shots with Maisie, if they can't perform well with Maisie, then what is her use case in the meta, right? She got a damage buff that doesn't fix her problems. Her problems is the slow projectile speed. She has no range, and her super cycling was the only reason why she was at the top of the meta, because of her broken hypercharge. So for now, I think she's maximum C tier. She's definitely not going to be anywhere near the meta, and if she is, I'm just going to delete my channel. Lastly, in the D tier, we have Mandy. So right now, she's got a bug where her projectile speed is actually slower than it should do. If you take a look at the patch notes and you read them, it's clear as day that Mandy should have actually got a projectile speed buff. It should have felt a bit nicer with the shield star power, but there's a projectile speed nerf right now. Her shot is so slow, there's no reason to use her. So with her current bug, I don't know when it's going to get fixed, but she's absolutely D tier. So now we're going to be moving on to the C tier. So most of the time, these are just pretty balanced, so just kind of okay in the meta. Most of the time, there's just better alternative picks, but if they're banned, then they can, of course, fill the gap. So start off with Willow. So the perfect brawler to replace Barley or Larry and Laurie. In draft, you know, these two brawlers are really, really dominant on like open business, pinball dreams, so many thrower maps, penalty kick. If they're banned out or taken, then Willow can be a good replacement. You know, she's just okay. She's good defensively against tanks because of her super. And for that reason, I think she'll always just be in the C tier. Next up in the C tier, we have Rosa. So again, a brawler that only thrives on a certain few maps. You think of all the bushy maps, Snake Prairie, you think of Center Stage, then Rosa can still be pretty good. But the damage dealers in the meta making it really hard for her to thrive. Next up in the C tier, I went with Grom. So I actually wanted to put Grom back in the D tier, but I know people will be saying that he's good, but he's only good into bad players because his projectile speed is just so slow. It's so easy to juke out his main attacks to do. Hit hard though. He's good as a late pick, but most time there's a better thrower, or there's an assassin, or there's just something that counters him. So I'll say it's like C-. Next up in the C tier, we have Tara. So she's in a bit of a weird spot right now where her hypercharge is really good, but there's just better lane brawlers out there. I'll say she's kind of like 7th, 8th in the lane packing order when you think of like Gem Grab, Brawl Ball. There's just better options right now, but there are a few maps that she really strives in, like Double Swoosh and Snake Prairie, so she's at least okay in the meta. So next up in the C tier, we have Shelly. So again, there's just better lane brawlers out there. There's better tank counters, so she doesn't really have much of a purpose right now, and of course she can just get outranged by those fellow tank counters as well, so it's just pretty rough for her. But still, those super bushy maps, she still has a place in that part. So next up in the C tier, we have Ruff. So in terms of the play rates, he's one of the least used brawlers in the game right now. He's not that fun to play, but I still think he's in and around this C/D tier. There's a couple of good maps for him. You think of good Rico maps, and you know, Ruffs can be okay there. He's good in Hard Rock Mine, good in a few places. Pros still play him a little bit, so he's not damn right trash, but he definitely needs a bit more love. So next up in the C tier, we have Lola. So she did receive a damage buff about a month ago. I thought that would have done a little bit better for her in the meta, but I just don't really see her being used too much. I just think there's flashier brawlers out there. She's just kind of this okay brawler. Maybe if you're unsure on what to go, then you know, she's pretty versatile in that sense, but still, she's just mid at everything. Next up in the C tier, we have Draco. So again, the meta around him just really doesn't favor him. Too many big damage dealers that can just push him back and just waste his gadgets, but still, I think it will remain at least a balanced brawler because of a broken gadget. So even though he has those big hard counters, his gadget can kind of overrule that sometimes. As you've seen on my second channel, when I played Draco, you can use him effectively in like Hulk Zone, etc., but it's just not the meta for him. For the C tier, we have M. So I would always put M's in like the D tier personally. She's not really played too much in competitive, but just because she's like this okay brawler that's just got so many okay matchups, just kind of just stuck in a C tier. So in the C tier, we have Brock. So I would say he's kind of in a C-, just on the brink of D tier. He's good against bad players again because his rocket's just so easy to hit against bad players, but good players can juke it out more consistently. There's just better sharpshooters out there that counter him too hard. He's also very prone to a lot of the meta assassins. I just don't think it's that meta right now. So in the C tier, we have BB. So again, another tank that's just getting ran all over in the meta. She can be good, and again, against bad players, I see a lot of good BB plays. Her hypercharge is probably the big reason pushing her still in the C tier because of the shield boost that she gets and the speed boost. It can be really effective, but for now, she remains in the C tier. So in the C tier, we have Colt. So another brawler where I'm like, oh, well, he's really good in heist. He's got big damage output, but everywhere else, there's just better damage dealers out there. He's only really good to open up the map, but still, people just pick his other gadget in a lot of use cases. I don't know why. But anyways, yeah, Colt's too predictable and just not that great right now. So in the C tier, we have Leon. So again, he's kind of just a king of mid. He's not really like great anywhere, but at the same time, he's not really like terrible anywhere. A good Leon can cycle supers and cause havoc on the map. He's still got a really good hypercharge, and his gadget can be pretty annoying, but still the pros don't really use Leon too much, so I think C tier is probably fair. Next up in the C tier, we have Griff. So he's kind of always on the borderline of B tier, C tier. He's kind of floating around there because of his gadgets. Really good to open up the map to counter certain archetypes, and still his super can shred a lot of the time. It's just more so the fact that his main attack is just so easy to predict and so slow. It makes it really hard for him to become a meta brawler. So in the C tier, we have Eve. So keeping on the theme of slow projectile brawlers, Eve is one of them, and she's just so easy to predict. I think now that she just doesn't have the damage to keep up, so even if you hit that really hard to hit projectile, it doesn't really make an impact. There's still the thing that's keeping a meta is there's just so many good water maps like Canal Grande, you got Out in the Open, there's a couple more as well, but she can still thrive, but still there's just Angelo and just better brawlers out there. In the C tier, we have Buzz. So again, he's kind of on the borderline of C, B tier. He's got a really good hypercharge, but I just still find with so many Gales, Moes, Chester, Surge, it's just so hard for Buzz to really make an impact, but he can still make that play with the hypercharge. Next up in the C tier, we have B. So B's in and around the C/B tier. I'd say C's fair for her, mainly because she's still not really being played too much by the pros. She can be good in like Brawl Ball, Gem Grab, but I always find that she's so easy to counter in ranked. It's just not really much point using it. So next up in the C tier, we have Carl. So starting to drop off even more in the metas now, as there's just more damage dealers and just more brawlers that can overrule him too easily. He still can be a fantastic pick for a more skilled player if you use him Flying Hook, which is the better gadget, which people are still using a fire gadget more often, which I'm just not sure about. flying hook allows him to just counter throwers, make more plays. He can still be good in the right hand. Next up in the C-tier, we have Otis. So he's always one of the most underrated brawlers in the game. There's a couple of really good maps for him where he can lock down the lane completely, like Last Stop, for example. But there's just better damage dealers out there. And he's only really used to counter like Daryl. But still, I'd rather just go like RT or just something like that. Next up in the C-tier, we have Sprout. So even with the damage buff last update, I don't think that's enough to really keep him in the meta. I think other throws are just better. And when you consider when you've got like Larry in the meta, you've got Barley and Knockout, I just still don't really see a purpose for Sprout. I think it's too easily countered right now. And lastly in the C tier, we have Gray. So again, he could easily be B tier, but I'm putting him C tier mainly because I'm seeing a lot less cheesier Gray compositions right now. In competitive, there used to always be a cheesy Gray strat going on, whether it be in Hot Zone with a tank, whether it be in Gem Grab with a tank. I'm just not really seeing it. He is like okay in Knockout. That's probably the only use case for him. But I'm just still finding way better alternatives right now. So I think he's slowly starting to drop off. Now we're going to be moving on to the B tier brawlers. So the B tier brawlers are going to be particularly good in a couple of game modes, or they're just going to be a cut above the rest in terms of just being good everywhere. So in terms of Lily then, Lily is a fantastic late pick brawler in ranked. And the reason why she'll always be in and around the meta is because of the broken gadget. You could just keep popping the Shadow Realm gadget and just fly around everywhere. It's just ridiculous. I know there's plans to rework it, nerf it in the future, but until that gadget is nerfed to oblivion, she's always going to be prevalent. So in the B tier, we have a Dynamite. So Dynamite's only good as a late pick in ranked because he is too easily countered by the assassins. But at the same time, if you don't have something that can combat Dynamite, he can 1 versus 3. His gadget is really strong. His hype charge is really good. He's really good on so many good thrower heavy maps right now. Penalty kick, hot potato, etc. He's still a fantastic brawler. Next up in the B tier, we have Tick. So the reason why he's so good is because of Knockout and Bounty. You can pretty much always just go with Tick and you know you're pretty safe to go. I'm starting to see a bit of a drop off though in that meta, mainly because it's just Kenji and Mortis just flying around everywhere, but he's still pretty good. So in the B tier, we have Pearl. So I know I underrated her a little bit in the last tier list, but I still think she's really, really good in Knockout and Bounty. Not really used elsewhere, but the main reason she's got so good there is because she can just heat up so effectively. Her gadget just deals so much damage, and she becomes a mini tank with the shield star power. So I think she's still a good brawler. Next up in the B tier, we have Nani. So I'm starting to see a lot more Nani in ranked right now. I know the hype charge isn't the greatest, but Nani's just good as a counter to the other snipers. If you pick Nani later on in draft, she's pretty good as a late pick in Heist, for example. Really good in Knockout and Bounty later on in the draft. Yeah, she's still fantastic. So with the B tier, we have Meg. So I've seen a big drop off in Meg in the play rates. Maybe she's even C tier, but for now B tier might be pretty fair. The HP nerf was pretty heavy, 1000 health. That's going to remove her completely near enough from the Knockout and the Bounty meta because she doesn't have the health to sustain and keep up the pressure. The damage is good. It's still hard to kill her, but I'm just finding her a lot easier to counter now. Next up with the B tier, we have 8-Bit. So another criminally underrated brawler. I just have such a good success rate with him in my ranked games. He's a good gem carrier. He's really good in Heist, and people forget about that because the only big counter to him really is Colette. So if you ban Colette, he's fantastic. And he's a really good brawler in Bounty and Knockout because there's so many cheesy strategies where you can just sit behind that 8-Bit turret, pair it with a thrower and a sniper, and it's like impossible to push into. So 8-Bit is the king of cheese right now. So next up in the beta, we have Stu. So I've seen recently the play rates of Stu has kind of gone through the roof. Not too sure why, but I still think beta is fair, mainly because he has a lack of DPS, but the HP buff a month ago did definitely help him out. He's just pretty versatile, and a good Stu can always make things happen. Next up in the beta, we have Crow. So his hype charge is just so broken in Heist. It can pretty much deal 50% to the high safe, which is crazy. But I'm starting to see Crow appear a lot more in the draft when you're looking at grassier maps because he's still got a pretty effective gadget, and his hype charge can still change the game whether you jump on a gem carrier or just make a play. So with the beta, we have Berry. So since the nerf, it's not really been as effective as before, but still in the right composition, he can be really, really terrifying. I think he's more of a hot zone brawler right now because you can cycle your superstar effectively there. He's better later on in the draft because normally there's a better thrower, but he's still pretty good brawler. Next up in the B tier, we have Jessie. So again, she's starting to drop down a bit. I wouldn't be surprised if she's near the C tier in the next meta, mainly because the only thing that's keeping her there is because she can cycle through to hype charge pretty quickly. But with so many throwers in the meta, it's making it so normally Jessie's good on a map with a lot of walls, right? Because she can put a turret behind it. But with so many throwers, they can destroy the turret so effectively and other brawlers are starting to power creep her a little bit. So I think B tier is probably where she's at now, but expect to drop. Next up in the B tier, we have Melody. So for the pros, she's still a fantastic brawler. I think people don't rate her as much as you should really, because you can't just brainlessly go in time and time again like you used to. You have to be a little bit more calculated in the way you go about things. But in heist, she's fantastic. As a late pick against snipers, she's great, but it's more about the player. If it's a good player, they can make Melody work easily. For the B tier, we have Belle. So Belle is always in and around the B/A tier. I would have a personal bias and put her in the A tier, mainly because she's just so good at everything. You can always go Belle, whether it's knockout, whether it's bounty, whether it's heist to be annoying. There just really isn't that many great counters to Belle, because if you're a good Belle, you can just counter everything. You can counter other snipers even. The way that you can tap her projectile speed is so fast. The hypercharge can allow her to make those plays. Yeah, I really like that. Next up in the B tier, we have Clancy. So I'd say Clancy is the biggest noob destroyer right now in the meta. If you just play a lot of ladder with casuals, then Clancy's going to look like the best brawler in the game, because he's going to get his levels easily. There's always going to be a dumb Mortis, Frank, Kenji, etc. So he's going to be good in ladder and Brawl. But in competitive, pros know how to counter Clancy. They know not to feed him levels. It's really easy and predictable just to stay away from Clancy. It takes him so long to get to stage 3. Of course, when he gets to stage 3, he's insane. But that's just really hard to get against good players. So I think B tier is fair. So with B tier, we have Colette. So when the meta was really messy, when Frank first got a rework, etc., she was S tier. She was so good at countering the meta. But now she's just found her level. You know, she can still be good at countering most tanks, but normally there's a better option. She's still S tier and heist, so B tier is where she's at. So next up with the B tier, we have Kit. So Kit's still a king of cheese, still really good at knockout, but most people know how to prepare for Kit now. And the thing is about Kit, there's still a lot of damage dealers in the meta, because there's so many Gales, Chesters, Surges, etc. It can still be pretty hard for Kit to really make things work. So yeah, good in knockout, but elsewhere, a little bit countered right now. So for the B tier, we have Cordelius. So I'm pleasantly surprised by how good he is in this meta. Maybe he's towards the A tier, because I'm finding myself playing Cordelius a lot in ranked. Even though I'm not the best Cordelius, I think it just feels a lot. He can counter so many different annoying brawlers. You think of all the hypercharge brawlers, you think of all the throwers as well, you can counter with the jump gadget. There's just always a place for Cordelius, whether it's defending in heist, whether it's being aggressive in Brawl. He's pretty good right now. So with the B tier, we have Nita. So Nita's still really good in the meta. It only takes her 2 supers to get our hypercharge, which is just so crazy. She can cycle through to it really effectively. I think any bushy map, she can just farm supers easily. The pros really like Nita. If I was just literally strictly speaking about competitive, maybe she would be low A tier. But I think there are still a few counters to her, like throwers. So yeah, B tier is fair. So next up in the B tier, we have Gene. My personal bias would definitely have him in the A tier. I think B tier is okay for him. He's really good in bounty and knockout. You know, good snipers probably will counter him a little bit though, but there aren't really that many big counters for him in draft. So that's why you always see him drafted by the pros. He's one of the most picked brawlers in that sense. Really good on super grassy maps like Double Swoosh, Snake Prairie, etc. So I think he's a very strong brawler. And lastly in the B tier, we have Penny. So probably my personal bias again will put her in the A tier, but I think B tier is fair. She still lacks a little bit of DPS to become really strong. But I think with the range buff, it's definitely been a great addition to her, because now she can just get in range easier, build up her super easier, and just be that little bit annoying. You also got the HP turret buff, which she received a month ago, which is going to help. I think people are definitely underrating her. The pros are playing her a lot more, so I think B tier is where she's at. Now we're going to be moving on to the A tier brawlers. So these brawlers are just a cut above the rest. Some of them are just so good in so many different scenarios. And the first one is Gus. Gus is being used so much by pro players right now. The big damage buff he got not too long ago has definitely shifted him right up the meta. You got to remember as well, this was a buff to the Cookie Popper gadget, so just extending his DPS even extra. He's still got that knockback with his super. It's just a different way to play him right now in terms of gem grab, good gem carrier, knockout, he's good, bounty is good. There's just so many ways to use Gus right now. So in the A tier, we have Amber. So again, floating around A/B tier. The pros seem to value Amber quite a lot just because she's pretty hard to draft into. Like, she's just good at everything. She can be good at scouting the grass, good damage with the super, good against assassins with the gadget. So for that reason, I think A tier is pretty fair. Next up in the A tier, we have Mortis. So I think A tier might be a bit optimistic, mainly because I think the hypercharge nerf definitely did impact him a lot more than I thought. Even though it's only an extra couple of swipes, I think it does definitely make an impact. The hypercharge itself is just so broken. So once you eventually get through to it, you can just get so many team wipes with the mythic gear. So yeah, he's definitely powerful in the right hands. For the A tier, we have Squeak. So the damage buff definitely helps Squeak out in the meta. He's gone all the way from the D tier to the A tier because he's just so good into everything. The hypercharge is a great addition as well. Even though it's not the flashiest of things, you can still get some really big damage boosts with him. The pros are using a lot of Squeak, even though it's more later on the draft, because still he's countered by those assassins, but he can still deal good damage against assassins, especially if you hit your shots effectively. I think he's an underrated one. Don't sleep on Squeak. So with the A tier, we have Sandy. So even though Sandy received that hypercharge nerf a couple of updates ago, I still think Sandy's prevalent in the meta. There's just too many grassy maps where Sandy, even against the worst possible matchups, you can still get that super and just cycle. The super itself is so good. The hypercharge super is just crazy. You can make so many game-changing plays with it. The pros hate facing off against Sandy, so definitely still a meta brawler. So with the A tier, we have RT, so another king of underrated. RT is always underappreciated and one of the least played brawlers in the game. Even though in pro play, he's one of the best brawlers, mainly because of that gadget rework that allows him to get his super instantly. It just makes it so he can instantly counter assassins. You know, most tank counters in the game, or just most brawlers, they can only counter assassins or tanks once they build up their super. Well, he gets the super for free and then just shreds them instantly. Really good in hot zone, good in knockout, bounty. There's just so many use cases for him. Definitely meta. So next up in the A tier, we have Rico. So again, another brawler which is overrated by the casuals, mainly because he is a noob stomper. He's got that pop-off potential, especially as a hypercharge, to make some really good plays, and sometimes it's unstoppable, but that's only in the right map. So we're talking like penalty kick, harder up mine, pinball dreams, and yeah, he's S tier, but there are a lot more maps in the game, and for a brawler to be S tier, they have to be good in a lot of places. So Rico, he can get countered as well. You've got throws that can counter him. Once his gadgets are down, he can be countered. But yeah, I can see why people are frustrated facing off against him. So in the A tier, we have Brawlers. So I absolutely love this brawler in ranked. Still, people never ban Brawlers, even on like so many good throw maps. He just dominates. His hypercharge is so good and so underrated. You can get so many good plays with it. And it's the fact that his build is so versatile. He's got healing, he's got extra damage, he's got the slow gadget against assassins, he's got the heal gadget to help you in hot zone and just sustain in knockout towards the later stages. There's so much to like about Brawlers. The only bad thing about him is that Mortis and Kenji are meta, but outside of that, he's just such a threat. Next up in the A tier, we have Frank. So a lot of his big counters did receive nerfs, but those nerfs were quite small, so I don't think it's like made him good enough to go towards the S tier. But still, Frank is good because he's got so much HP. He's still pretty annoying to face. When he's low, he can just shred you. His hypercharge is still super strong. It can just allow him to make so many plays, but because it's Frank and he still fundamentally can get countered by so many things, it can't push him into the S tier. Next up, we have Buster. Buster is still such an insane brawler in the right hands and competitive. There's so much to like about Buster. There's so many ways to outplay the opponent, so many ways to close down kills with gadgets. There's so many good maps for him. Even open maps are good for him. Grassy maps are even better. The pros love Buster. He's absolutely still A tier. So next up in the A tier, we have Piper. She's starting to become really annoying again. You've got the really good hypercharge that can be cycled so quickly. Both gadgets are so cheesy, some of the most annoying gadgets in the game, and her damage output is just insane. The meta's starting to shift a bit, which is making her a little bit better, but mainly because of the top two brawlers right now, she can't be S tier. Next up in the A tier, we have Max. And Max is still super underappreciated by most people. They just overlook her, but she's such a good support brawler. She'll never be the one to get the most insane stats, but because of her super and her hypercharge, it's completely carrying her. She's so good in every single game mode. She's a great counter to snipers, and just a good Max can always make things happen on the map. For the A tier, we have Angelo. So another brawler that's just really annoying me right now in the meta. There's so many good Angelo maps, and he's just such a good damage dealer. He's so hard to kill. His super can still be really annoying because it can deal so much damage. His hypercharge is the only thing stopping him from being S tier, though it takes him so long to go and get that. But yeah, there's too many good maps for him right now. Next up in the A tier, we have Chester. So I thought 2 nerfs would definitely do a lot more to him. Maybe this begs the question that people were underrating Chester for a long time. Yeah, maybe I'm one of them. But still, he wasn't used by the pros for a very long time until he received those buffs. But I still think he's A tier. the HP nerf wasn't enough. The nerf to his star power wasn't enough. He can still just get so much value, and he's still super versatile. He's absolutely A tier, maybe into the S tier still. So moving into the final brawler who is in the A tier, it is a Gale. So a lot of people predicted Gale to just fall straight back down, but they definitely overreacted. I can't believe people thought that he would just be straight up killed. His hypercharge is still, I think his hypercharge is the best hypercharge in the game. I'm just going to go ahead and say it, because you can just get automatic team wipes through walls with it. It's insane. I know it takes 4 supers to get, but with Gale, you can cycle that easy with the stun star power. His slow star power is just so toxic and so good. And it's just still Gale. He can still counter tank so easily. I think he's absolutely A tier and still maybe even S tier. So now we're going to be moving into the S tier brawlers. So these brawlers are just a cut above the rest. There's a couple at the end that probably should be in the S plus tier. But let's just start off with Byron then. So Byron is being used all the time by pros. His versatility is insane. There's hardly any bad matchups for him. He can pair well with pretty much everybody. The synergy is crazy. You can use him as a gem carrier. Literally every map should literally be a good Byron map. I think there's only a few maps in a rotation where he's not good on. You know, bushy maps aren't his best because, of course, snipers aren't good on bushy maps. But everywhere else, he's just insane. Now we're going to be moving into the best 5 brawlers in the game, starting off at number 5 with Daryl. So Daryl is just still crazy. The fact that the nerf was only to his basic attack, I just really didn't notice the difference, because most of the time with Daryl anyways, you're not going to be shooting at maximum range. You're going to be shooting when you roll directly on top of them and destroy them, and by the time you've just got another super. As long as Daryl, you know, a lot of people do misuse him, but the best tip is to make sure with your last super, you've got 2 of them, make sure your last super you get value and try and cycle through to another 2 supers. That's the way to use them effectively, because it's kind of like Edgar in that sense. If you waste a super, it takes so long to get your next one back, but I just think he's insane. There's hardly any true counters to him. So now moving on to the 4th best brawler in the game right now, we have Surge. So about a year ago, he was easily in the D tier, and he's just been slowly getting buffs, slowly receiving meta changes, and of course the hypercharge in the last update, which isn't anything crazy broken, but it's still a hypercharge that can allow him to make some crazy plays, especially when people are camping behind walls. He can do some disgusting damage with it. His gadgets are still pretty effective. He's got a lot of HP for once was considered a squishy brawler. Yeah, he's not squishy anymore. There's so many good situations for him. He can just shut down so much. Yeah, he's absolutely meta right now. So now we're going to be moving into the 3rd best brawler in the game right now, and we have the twins. So Larry and Laurie are just absolutely cracked. This, again, is going to be an opinion where most people will overlook. They'll say, well, they're not toxic. But that's mainly because they're nowhere near what they were like before. They were just like, if we're talking tiers, they were probably like S++++++, the most broken brawler of all time, the twins were. Well, he's still S tier right now. Again, it's versatility, which is the main problem with Larry and Laurie. He can be good into other throws because of the insane range, and the fact that he has 2 projectiles means he can zone for so long. His damage output is really good. If you're facing off against assassins, I think that's been the key change. People just switch star power, so then every time that the twin shoots an opponent, you then get more ammo back. So it means you just got increased DPS, really hard to take him down. His gadget's really good. And there's just so many good maps for the twins right now. If you look to my rank guide, there's pretty much Larry and Laurie everywhere. He's absolutely S tier right now. Do not underrate him, because he's very good. So now we're going to be moving into the best 2 brawlers in the game right now, and I think they're just a cut above the rest completely. So the first one is Kenji. Kenji is still crazy. I can't believe they only nerfed him a tiny bit. It's clear to me that they still want him to be meta, because you could just pick up and play Kenji. Maybe if you're not the best player, it may take a while to get used to how to play him. Maybe I need to make a Kenji guide, because even myself, I can make Kenji work. He's just dumb crazy broken right now. He's got a star power. Every 5 seconds, you can just tank an entire shot, basically, which is insane. His gadget allows you to take so much damage. Press gadget green button, and you're back to, I don't know, 3/4 full HP. And then you've got the super that just cycles so quickly, deals so much damage, allows you to jump over walls, just create chaos. He's got a really fast reload speed, good damage. There's just so much about Kenji that makes him so broken. He's absolutely a top 2 brawler in the game. Okay, so now moving into the best brawler in the game right now. There should be 0 debates here. It is Mo. The annoying little rat is still the best brawler in the game. He received 2 nerfs, which was just nowhere near enough. I knew that was going to be the case. I knew that wasn't going to shift him away to the meta, because the damage he can deal is still insane. His super is so annoying. It's everything about him is annoying, but who would have guessed it, right? The 2 new brawlers in the game are the best brawlers in the game. And some people will try and fight that and say, oh, it's because people don't know how to counter them yet. No, they're just uncounterable. If you play any ladder, especially high trophies, you know how just insufferable these 2 brawlers are. And even with Mo, he got a super charge rate nerf. He can still be a little bit more approachable, but he'll eventually just get his super. If you push into him, that's not good, because he's just going to deal insane damage. And the thing about Mo is that his wall peeking capabilities are just insane. It's like Spike, but 10 times better. He can wall peek, he can just snipe you. His super, of course, just goes under walls, and just the knockback is insane. Insane damage, insane movement speed, mobility. Just everything about Mo is insane. And the only way to counter him really is if you just literally stand at maximum tiles. The only thing that counters him is the maps. Like, you can't go Mo and shooting star. That's probably about it. But yeah, that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Here's the tier list on the screen. If you use a tier list anywhere, make sure to, of course, try and put my face in, or just at least mention my video, at least quote it. But I think it's a very accurate representation. I'm actually surprised when the balance changes come in. I thought they were going to shift up the meta a lot more, but probably the nerfs weren't enough. You know, so many brawlers that receive nerfs are still right at the top of the meta. So this is actually going to be the final tier list until the update, because, well, maybe even after the update, because there's going to be no balance changes until after World Finals, which is literally in nearly 4 weeks' time. So yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.